So, how many years did you teach, and what ended that? Was it the war effort?
I taught 5 years, and during that time, the World War II came out, and everybody was getting into the defense work. King had already gone to Columbus, Ohio to work in defense work, and actually I guess that's what kept him out of the Army. I don't know, but I expect it was. And well, anyway, the little country community like Richfield was, they kept such an eye on the teachers, you know, and they didn't think we ought to do anything hardly. But anyway, I kind of got tired of it, and I thought, well, I believe I'd like to go. And at that time, my roommate was not Edna. She'd already gotten married and left. Was I can't think of her name right now, but she and I decided to go together. And King says, well, now if you're determined that you're going to get into defense work, I don't know why you don't come up here, and maybe I can help you out get the job and all.
To Columbus, Ohio.
Columbus, Ohio. And, well, we went up there, and we got in a boarding house, but they gave you a little room and something to keep your breakfast food in, but the other 2 meals you had to eat out. Oh, now talking about getting old, man, that got old. And well, anyway, we both got jobs and we worked, and she kind of got tired of it, and so she quit and got into the Red Cross work. I don't know whether she went overseas or what, but she got into the Red Cross work. I don't know where she is now. I can't even think of her name.
But what was your job?
Inspector.
Of what?
Of installations on the plane. I can't think of the name of that plane. What was the name? Well, it was Curtis Wright was the company.
Yeah.
But I can't think of that. It wasn't a Hell Diver, but it was something like that.
Some kind of fighter plane.
Well, yeah, it was the kind that the wings folded up so they could get a whole lot of them on the ship.
Uh-huh.
And made by Curtis Wright. And I would say like they'd install a certain thing. Well, the inspector had to come and patch that up, you see.
Mm-hmm.
But now, King's work was kind of, the plane's already made, you know, really, you know, it took good mechanics to be what he was. But he was in a different part of the plant entirely.
Mm-hmm. So, how did you meet Herbert Fisher there?
Well, I think, like my roommate's name was Sarah, and I can't think of her last name still. She was dating a whole lot of different people, and I don't know, I think she's the one that encouraged me. She didn't want to go with him anymore, and that's how that started.
Okay. And what did you like about him?
Shoot, I don't know. Must have liked everything, or I wouldn't have lived with him all that time.
Right. So, let's see, I wrote down, where did you get married? So.
Well, that'd be hard for me to tell you, but I didn't want a big wedding, so I went out there by myself.
Where?
Where Herbert was.
In Texas.
You gotta let me think. I don't know where it was.
Giddings, Texas.
Huh?
Giddings, Texas?
Well, no, that's where his daddy was a preacher,
yeah.
But he was dead by that time, and they built a little house at LaGrange.
Right.
His mother lived.
Mm.
It didn't have a one-bedroom in it.
It looked like a garage, the picture I saw. A little bit.
Well, I don't remember, but of course they didn't have much money, and retired preachers' families. I think his mother got, I believe Herbert said, $25 a month from her husband's preaching
career.
So she had to do little jobs around, like raising pretty flowers and selling them or something like that to make a little money.
Mm-hmm.
She didn't have much.
So were you married in LaGrange?
No,
Or somewhere?
we were married and Herbert had a friend that was a preacher that he grew up with,
Mm-hmm.
and then he wanted to go there, and it was in Oklahoma. Oklahoma. What's the capital of Oklahoma, you know?
Oklahoma City, I guess.
No, that don't sound right.
Tulsa.
Huh?
Tulsa?
No. It was the capital of Oklahoma. I can't remember the name of it.
Okay.
But anyway, it was just a preacher and his wife and a friend or a witness or something like that,
Uh-huh.
that we got married.
So where did you live then?
Then we moved back to let's see, the first place. His sister, her husband was in the service, and she had this little, I guess you call it trailer house, close to her husband's dad. And he wasn't out of service yet. I guess Herbert talked to her into letting us live in that
Okay.
until we moved to Winfield and met the Martins and all that. Of course, that was friends of his all along.
Mm-hmm.
And so we moved into first just a one room. I guess we had a kitchen. I don't know what we lived there for a little while until Pauline and them talked us into moving in their apartment.
Okay.
And well, then when I got pregnant, I felt like we wanted to get our own house, and so we bought that little house. $7,500. Oh man, that was a lot of money.
Now, Herbert's job before that was what?
Whatever he wanted to make it, whatever he could find to sell, he traveled. Most of it was athletic stuff, and he tried other things. If it didn't pay, he'd just drop it, and he'd write all these different companies to see if they needed a salesman.
Now, you used to call him a jobber, so he was kind of the middleman. He would go to stores and sell merchandise to stores.
You had to be about 6 months ahead. One time he had a lot of toys. Well, you had to be 6 months ahead of that to get your orders in and all that, you see.
Mm-hmm.
Well, same way with basketballs and all that stuff.
But he would go to sporting goods stores in all these little towns.
That's right, and sell them, and sell them the order. But he never delivered any of it. It all came later on, you know.
Now, what was his territory? Because it's really big.
Yeah, he usually had 4 states.
Like
Oklahoma and Kansas and, well, it must have been Iowa too, because we eventually moved up there.
And Nebraska.
Right, I guess so.
So he would drive all over those states, stopping at all these little towns and visiting all these little
stores.
stores.
All these stores. He had the regular customers every year, you know. He'd go to the same ones.
And didn't you go with him for a while?
I did the first year. First year we traveled together, and back then, you can imagine out on the prairie of Texas with no air conditioner, how that was traveling.
It's hard to believe. He had to look fresh when he went to these stores to sell them stuff.
Yeah, a lot of times I'd stay in the car. I remember.
Okay, this is the third tape of the interview with Francis Fisher and on the family history, and it's August the 8th, 2002. And so, could you tell the story about traveling with Herbert when he was a traveling salesman.
Am I starting now?
Yeah.
Well, he traveled 4 different states, and of course everything he sold, he had to sell it to the stores 6 months ahead of time. Like if you're gonna...
We've gone through this part. Tell about going into the store.
Well, anyway, yeah, okay. So I traveled with him the first year, and well, I remember in Oklahoma, I don't know what town it was, because he always laughed when I tried to pronounce the towns out there that I never heard of. Well, anyway...
They were Indian names a lot of times, weren't they?
Yeah. Well, anyway, he had a place to call to sell, and so he left me in the car, and it was downtown somewhere where all the stores were. Well, right beside where we parked was this store that actually, it was on 2 sides of the street, because the front door that we went into was on a corner. And so I never could keep my directions right. I've always lost my directions. Well, anyway, I went into the store to look around and to waste some time until he got back to the car. So I went out what I thought was the door that I came into, and well, I couldn't find the car. I couldn't find the car. And while I was on the outside trying to figure out where I was looking up in the sky and trying to, and the top of the buildings and trying to make, and so, and my head was up looking like that, and somebody came along and says, could you tell me where so-and-so is? I says, lady, I can't tell you where anything is. I'm lost myself. Well, anyway, when I come to find out, I had gone out of the wrong side of the door, wrong side, and so our car was on the next street.
So you found it?
Yeah. But now, you want me to tell about traveling with him? I don't know of anything special interesting.
Well, like, how many thousand miles a year did he drive on those 4 states? It must have been incredible. I remember he had an Oldsmobile, the biggest Oldsmobile they made, the 88.
Well, it wasn't that. I don't have any idea how many miles it was, but we had to keep a new model car because you put so many miles on it. He liked, well, at first we had a big Oldsmobile, a 98. And then the next one was a smaller one, but it was a nice car. But about every 2 years we got a new car, and it was an Oldsmobile 88. That wasn't too long after the war, and when the war was over, it was impossible to buy a new car, and a lot of times you bought a used one and you really got bit. Well, we got a Nash one time that Herbert, when he wanted to go, say, a couple hundred miles before he'd make his first call, he'd want to get started real early in the morning. Well, I don't know how many times he had that all set up. He'd go out, get all packed up, and the darn thing wouldn't start. It was just something the matter with that Nash car that it wouldn't start at first. So we put up with that a little bit, but I don't remember what. But it was hard to find the car then after the war. They weren't making, see, everybody had been making tanks and stuff like that.
Now, what was his work week like? Because I remember that he was away most of the time.
No, he wasn't away most of the time, but when it was time to sell certain things, he would be out maybe the whole week. But there were times when it wasn't right for anything that he might be home a whole month.
And also the income was like that. There might be times when he'd make a big sale and there's other times he didn't.
That's exactly right. And right after the war, when you couldn't get toys and things like that, well, Herbert thought he had a store. I don't know whether it was a Sears or something like that. It was a big store. that he had these little red wagons that he sell, and he thought he could get his net. Well, it was going to make a tremendous sale because they had other stores to send it to. But to come to find out, after he got it all planned, there was no way they would send him that many. So that was a waste of time.
Oh, he made the sale, but he couldn't get the wagons.
Yeah, you couldn't get them delivered because all the companies that were making those things, they still weren't back in business yet from making defense stuff, you know.
Mm-hmm. Now, where was Herbert born? Wasn't it in Illinois? No.
It was in Giddings, Texas.
He's born in
Giddings, Texas.
His father was from Illinois.
Well, I don't know about that part. But anyway, his father was a Lutheran minister. And he was I think, the first generation from Germany. And his wife, no, I think he was second generation. Now, I think his wife was maybe a teenager when she came from Germany. I'm not quite sure about that, but both of them were German descent.
And he would preach on Sunday in one sermon in English and one in German, I think.
Yeah, this little town of Giddings, Texas was full of German people that had not learned the English language. So he had to have one service for the German people, and one service in English. Well, of course, you know, they had, I think it was 7 children. And back then, when any conference or anything like that came along and the other preachers and so forth had to come to town, they naturally stayed with the preacher because there weren't any motels and stuff like that then. And Herbert got so aggravated how many times they had to sleep on the floor till those people left. And not only that, they had to go to church all the time. They had to be in the church every time there was church. And he got tired of that too. But he kind of made up in his mind a little bit in his mind that he just didn't want to go to church. But his dad was determined he's going to be a preacher. That Herbert was going to be a preacher. So he just decide that that's what he's going to do. And he went on to preacher school and got far as vicaring one summer. Vicaring is when you go out, I think it was out in Nebraska, to all these little churches, and you'd have 2 or 3 that you'd be responsible for. But not much after that, he decided he's going to do his life what he wanted to. He just forgot about the preachers entirely. I couldn't hardly even get him to go to church as far as that goes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I remember that. Now, he had gone to college in Winfield when he was going to the seminary.
That was a Lutheran school.
Yeah.
That was part of his preaching.
Yeah.
Now, where else he went, I just do not know. But he went long enough that he could have been a preacher.
But that was why he knew all those people in Winfield, was because he was going to seminary, St. John's College.
No, that's not the reason. Let's see. I don't know how he happened to find the Martin family, and that was a big family of boys and girls both. But he might have learned to know them after he was in Winfield. I don't know, but they were good friends the rest of their lives, the whole Martin family and Herbert.
Okay. But he did go to St. John's in Winfield. That was the college.
One thing, what was the name of that other school?
Oh, he's not? Okay.
But other than one Lutheran. It was a little Lutheran college, and I can't remember the name. There were 2 colleges in Winfield. One was a Methodist, I think, and one was a Lutheran.
Uh-huh. So you don't know where he went to the seminary?
I sure do not know.
Okay.
Maybe he didn't have to go back then. I don't know.
Uh-huh. I see. All right. When when you all had spare time, how did you spend your spare time? I always thought if you play in bridge a lot, but you probably had other stuff.
Herbert never did play cards. We never did play cards. Well, he spent his time at home a lot writing letters to all these different companies so that he could sell their product. He was continually writing to see if they needed a salesman. Back then, they wouldn't have their own, most companies wouldn't have their own salesmen. They just hired somebody, and whoever they hired might have 10 other things they were selling.
Mm-hmm.
Well, he tried toys. That didn't work too good because the stores get so aggravated, the kids would come in and play with the toys and break them so badly. And that was a big loss. He didn't enjoy it. He sold toys a couple of years, what he got out of it. He'd sell anything that, you know, he thought he could make some money on, and he tried for a while, and if it didn't make any money, he'd drop it.
Well, what did you do in your spare time?
I don't know. I'm trying to think.
Mm-hmm.
But before Jimmy was born, I'm trying to think, what did we do?
Probably visited.
I was trying to think. I used to play a lot of tennis, but now whether Herbert played tennis or not, I just don't know.
See, he was a sportsman, so he liked to go hunting and fishing.
He wasn't
and stuff.
he wasn't as much a sportsman as he loved baseball.
Right.
And he wasn't a baseball player, but he knew all the big players and what their batting average was, and all about them. And at that time, one of our local Concord boys he had the best batting average for 2 years straight, I think it was, the Goodman boy.
Billy Goodman.
Yeah. And Herbert was proud of that. Well, anyway, see, when he was in these towns, especially way back before we were married, he stayed in the hotels in the big cities. A lot of times they would have these big baseball games there. Of course, he'd go to the games, and then he'd stay in the same hotel that a lot of the players did. And that way he got a whole lot of balls autographed. But he did not take care of them. If he'd have saved them all and not messed them up, we would probably have a fortune. But we only have 2 of them. But one is very valuable. It has Babe Ruth on it, and Lou Gehrig, and some of the others I can't think right now, but it's pretty valuable. And another, it was assessed at $3,000 maybe 4 years ago. That was a local assessor, but I expect it's worth more than that now. And the other one wasn't worth but $500, I believe it was. I can't remember what was on that one, but it wasn't near as famous as Lou Gehrig and Babe Ruth being on there.
Mm-hmm.